Good morning. We have Mr. Moyes here. Good morning. So I don't think I need to go through all the necessaries that we've done before, just to say quickly that we do have some officers up here, Mr. Moyes. On my left-hand side, I have Linda. Would you like to speak first?
Hello, I'm Linda Yarham. I'm Democratic Services Officer.
We also have
I'm Madeni, Democratic Services Manager.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the public. My name is Philip Rosen. I am the Assistant Director of Planning.
Morning, everybody. My name is Noel Doran. I'm a solicitor, legal advisor this morning to the Development Committee. Thank you.
I don't know if I said my name, but my name is Pauline Grove Jones and I'm chairing this committee. If you hear the fire alarm, exit with the officers slowly. You know the routine. Don't run, don't use the lift, use the chair, the stairs, and assemble either at the back or in the car park in the front. Please turn your mobile phones off. And I don't think there's anything else I need to say at this particular point in time. The officers will give us technical reports and advice, and we will now turn to the agenda. Pardon? Yes, I just need to do that. Oh, is it not? No. Hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Yes, I'm just... Do you know, it's the second time somebody yesterday tried to preempt me and tell me what I needed to do next. I don't know. What's that? You're we all right now? Right, apologies, Linda, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have apologies this morning from Councillor Pearce with Councillor Cushing as substitute, from Councillor Stockton with Councillor Rest as substitute, Councillor Yasimi with Councillor Toy as substitute, and from Councillor Varley, but there's no substitute. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe you've all had the minutes of the last meeting held on the 23rd of September. I won't go through it page by page. Have you looked at the minutes and any problems? No. Can I have, please, thanks, Gerard's approving seconder. Nigel Lloyd, could we just have a show of hands to accept the minutes of the 23rd? Thank you. I think that's unanimous, Linda. No, are there any items of urgent business?
Oh, Chairman.
Thank you. The order of business stays as it is, as we've only got one application, so that's very easy. Declarations of interest. Yes.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chairman. It's for openness rather than anything else. It falls outside our law protocol. But I need to state that I do know Mr. Stibbons, the chair of the Paston Foundation, and have worked with him in the past on education projects, albeit it was 20 years ago. But,
well, I think it's just as well to mention these things. Anybody else? We okay? Right, thank you very much. And I'd like to introduce now, as we're going to the officers' reports, Officer James Mann, who will be presenting planning application North Walsham PO/20/1251, pages 3 on your agenda.
Cool, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Bear with me a second. I will just share my screen so that.
You're very soft, James. Can you?
Yeah, apologies. Is that better? Can you hear me okay?
Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to speak up. Sorry. I'll just share my screen quickly and then I shall start. Okay. So this morning, yeah, the first application, the only application on this agenda is PO20-1251. This is an outline application for 54 dwellings, including 45% affordable dwellings on the site. The application is an outline application, as mentioned, so access only. All other matters are reserved for consideration at this time. and it's set out, as said, on pages 3 to 26 of your agenda. So the location of the site, to the south of North Walsham Town Centre, to the south of the railway line and the A149 on the former Paston College playing field, situated next to the Victory Swimming and Leisure Centre or Fitness Centre, and close proximity to North Walsham train station. The site itself is currently privately owned by the Paston Foundation, and there is no public access available to the site at present, with various signs around the site indicating that it's private property. Oops. So if I just come on to really the main issue in this regard is the principle of development. So obviously the site itself is situated within the settlement boundary of North Walsham, which is obviously defined as one of the principal settlements in policy SS1, one of the most sustainable settlements in North Norfolk. There are two fundamental issues that I'd like to take you through. So one is the policy conflict with education allocation ED1, which was allocated in the site allocations development plan document back in 2011. This is set out in full on page 12 of your agenda. Essentially, the allocation was for the purposes to allow Paston College to expand, and an application was subsequently approved on the site in 2013. However, this expired in 2018 with obviously nothing forthcoming. The operation of Paston College was transferred to Norwich City Council back in 2017. Through this application and subsequent pre-application, neither Paston College Foundation nor Norwich City College have any need of use of the land, and through the consultation of this application, Norfolk County Council have confirmed in their role as education authority that they have no use of the land or need of the land for the short to medium term, even taking into account the planned growth in North Walsham. So as part of this education allocation, and it also ties into the open area, which I'll get onto next. So Sport England are raising an objection on the basis of losing this land. However, the FA are quite supportive of the offsite contribution towards football, and are satisfied that no formal activity has taken place on this site since 2017 when the land was transferred to Norwich City Council. However, Sport England still maintain that objection. So whilst this proposal is contrary to ED1, paragraph 122 of the MPPF makes it clear that where there's no reasonable prospect of an application coming forward for the intended use, so in this case the education use, the local authority should support alternative applications in the interim where this proposed use would meet an identified need. This scheme is obviously providing 45% affordable housing, of which there is a strong need within, so 24 dwellings would be general needs affordable homes, and there's a strong identified need in the area. As of April 2021, there were 1,337 households on the council's housing list who want to live in North Walsham. So as I mentioned, the open land area element of this proposal set out on pages 12 and 13, and then the open space provision set out on pages 17 to 19 of your agenda. So this site was designated as an education open space and also an open land area in the existing core strategy. So in terms of the education element for open space, this site would be contrary to that as part of policy CT1. However, as aforementioned, paragraph 122 of the MPPF would essentially give us the sort of, I suppose, how can I say, it would indicate us that we should move towards approving applications that were not of this use coming forward. However, policy CT1 also talks about the open land area, and that allocation or designation is proposed to be rolled over into the emerging local plan. And that policy CT1 at present, although we can't really give much weight to the local plan at present, policy CT1 of the existing core strategy sets out that when you're losing an open area of land such as this, development proposals will only be permitted where it enhances the open character of the area or the recreational use of the land. So in this case, obviously it's losing that open character. The site itself is 3.8 hectares and 1.8 hectares is proposed to be retained as open space. However, at present, in regard to recreational use, the site is privately owned and therefore not publicly accessible. So the 1.8 hectares of open space that will be provided through this and will be set out on a parameters plan showing that there would be a minimum amount of outdoor gym space, locally equipped area of play, local area of play, and amenity green space. Essentially, this would enhance the recreational use of this land. And if I just show you another slide, this essentially shows the open spaces within North Walsham. Apologies if that's quite small, but essentially the sort of dark green colours are the accessible parks and recreation grounds. The light green colours are amenity green space, so sort of these areas. The education open space elements that are highlighted in pink are obviously subject to private ownership and accessibility on those parts. So in terms of North Walsham, there isn't any accessible parks and recreation ground to the south of the railway line. So this site in allowing this application would therefore allow 1.8 hectares of accessible public open space to be available on this site. So with me, if I just go back to this slide. So essentially as aforementioned, Sport England still maintain their objection to this. However, off-site contributions will be made also to North Walsham Football Club, and this is supported by the FA. This is set out on page 25 of your report. So therefore, in terms of policy CT1, it's considered that given the paragraph 122 removing that education element, the policy would comply with CT1 in regard to the loss of the open land area. If I just come on to highways, bear with me a second. So in terms of this application, we're considering the means of access and therefore the suitability of the access road. So access will be provided a single point of access onto Station Road. There'll be obviously conditions subject to maintaining the visibility displays, etc. The suitability of Station Road has been raised, I think, through many of the public comments. I believe members have seen some photographs that were sent around the last few days. So through the process, originally Highways objected to the scheme on the basis of the narrowness of the road and footpath. The applicant then subsequently set out some measurements and detailed assessment of the road itself and the junction, including off-site highways works to that junction. So whilst this is essentially below what highways would typically request, so they would normally want a 5.5 metre road to provide suitable access of this type of development. They were minded that this was close enough to their guidelines that they would not raise any objection in this case. In terms of the off-site highways improvements, the hedgerow along this part of the site is proposed to be sort of pushed back. So they're removing that element, I think 37 metres of hedgerow to be replaced with 37 metres of hedgerow. I should mention that although they've put here potential tree removal, I think the idea is to not remove any trees from the site, and I believe that's been updated. A second. So in terms of the accessibility of the site, so obviously given the location, there would be an additional amount of traffic moving down Station Road, the Norwich Road junction. In the transport assessment, this is set out as something like 27 two-way trips in the morning peak and 23 two-way trips in the PM peak. So there's quite a lot of emphasis given to the sustainable location of this site in terms of proximity to the train station, availability to walk through the site, which currently isn't an available option, and cycle connection. There would also be some improvements made to the Weavers Way connections and the public rights of way. And just coming on to the tree loss. So just as I mentioned, no trees are to be lost on the frontage of Station Road. 37.6 metres of hedges to be replaced with the same or greater. And also on that parameters plan for the open space, the scrubland area is to be retained for its ecological benefits. Oops, why doesn't that work? So recommendations are set out on page 24 of this report. So as mentioned, the Sport England are maintaining their objection. So any recommendation that members make today, this application would subsequently then go to the Secretary of State for notification before, and they would have to make their recommendation before a decision can be made. So subject to that, and a satisfactory section 106, including all of the public benefits as mentioned, so 45% affordable housing, the minimum of 18,840 square meters of open space, SAC, SPA contributions, library contributions, those improvements to the Weavers Way network, the off-site open space contributions in regard to allotments and the provision of a new 3G pitch at North Walsham. The recommendation is therefore one of approval. And this is set out on pages 25 and 26 of your agenda. I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, James. I now go to our speakers. I don't think we have anybody from the town council here. There's no written representation. No objectors. We have one supporter. Mr. Moyes, if you'd like to come up, please. If you'd like to sit on the end. And I think, I don't know, have you got a microphone? Yes, turn it round, if you wouldn't mind, and press the second one in from the right. That's it. You have 3 minutes from the time you start speaking. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. Morning, members. Just to make a few salient points about the application. Proposals for the development of the site have been subject to discussions with planning officers since 2018. And during that time, considerable changes have been made to the proposals, particularly in relation to open space. It's acknowledged, of course, that the proposal is contrary to both local and national policies that seek to retain open spaces like this. However, we consider there are a number of material considerations in this case which would justify a different approach and an exception to policy. Running through those briefly, firstly, as you've heard, the site is surplus to the requirements of Paston College. Since it was transferred to Norwich City College in 2017, the site has remained unused. And in fact, we believe that since 2005, the site has only been used very occasionally. Secondly, the site would deliver a generous amount of open space on site, as you've seen from the plans. The level of open space would be approximately 4 times that which you would normally expect under policy for a housing development of this size, and would amount to some 40% of the total site area. Thirdly, again, as you've heard, the site would provide financial contributions to other recreation infrastructure in the town, in particular the £45,000 towards a new 3G pitch at the football club, for which a need has been identified in the local strategy, and £16,000 towards allotment provision. Fourthly, Paston Foundation as a charity is governed by the Charities Commission, and the proceeds of the sale and the use of that money would be subject to controls under the charities laws, and would have to have regard to the objectives of the charity, which are to promote education for young people between 11 and 19 years old in North East Norfolk. And based on expected returns from the site, the estimate is that around £75,000 per year would be available as a result of this development for those sorts of projects. Finally, again, as you've heard, the proposal would provide a significant contribution for new housing in the area, including affordable housing in a very sustainable location close to the town centre. And in terms of the visual aspects of the open space, whilst development would clearly change the appearance of the site, the master plan does show development being set back considerably from the road, And with the amount of public open space, that would retain, I think, some sense of openness to the area. In terms of traffic, one of the other main concerns locally, the access has been designed in accordance with Norfolk County Council standards. And again, whilst you've heard that the width of Station Road falls below that would be ideally required.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tice. Your 3 minutes is up.
Thank you.
If you'd like to return to your seat. Local member, Councillor Nigel Lloyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What the Speaker didn't mention just then was that this land was bequeathed to North Walsham almost 400 years ago to, I believe, the Paston Foundation, which morphed into what it is now, and it's currently in an academy and owned by Norwich City Council. The land up until I've used that land recently in a triathlon, and it does open up to the public for that purpose periodically. But the fact that the Paston have put a fence around it, basically blocking off access since 2017, of course the land has sat there unused for most of that time. I just want to go through a few aspects of the planning, the officer's report. Firstly, Anglian Water. In the same ward that I represent, Anglian Water seem to accept every application that comes its way and says it can handle the expected flows, and other parts of my ward subject to regular flooding events since more and more incremental building is taking place. So I don't see any plots of where that water will go, and I don't trust Anglian Water to tell us that there won't be an issue with it. Biodiversity loss, disappointing, particularly with the hedgerows. Hedgerows don't receive the same protections as trees, and yet they are a huge source of biodiversity, often much richer than trees themselves. So the loss of that and replacement over a number of years, it will, once the biodiversity is gone, it will take years and years to come back. The fact that you're just planting hedges to replace ones that you've chopped down isn't an argument in my view. Pretty much the biodiversity is lost, and once the structures are up, they'll be less inclined to come back. Human rights, huge amount of opposition to this from local people, including the town council. I'm disappointed they aren't here today. The road itself has a pathway only on one side. It is subject to access only permission to Victory and to the houses along Station Road. It leads into what I would say was an inadequate small roundabout at the end of Millfield Road and Station Road. I don't see anything there in the report that says whether access will turn right or turn left, but either way is unacceptable to residents and actually myself. North Walsham has got so much development going on. We've had about 500-600 houses over the last 3 or 4 years, some of which has been affordable. We also have the emerging local plan that's going to bring at least 1,800 more houses, much as a percentage of which will also be affordable. So whilst I support the affordable level of housing that this application will provide, I think in a few years' time, there'll be much more coming to this town. And there is a question about how much development North Walsham can actually take. It all seems to be in my ward. You know, that is just a fact. And it's becoming unsustainable, in my view. Loss of open space, disappointing with that. It's okay to say you're not creating any open space. The open space is there already. You're taking away open space with this development. In my view, this development should be viewed as an exception housing scheme. There was a similar one just around the corner from this development at Laundry Loke, where there was a loss of employment land. But because the scheme offered 100% affordable homes, it seemed to me that I was able to accept that to help with the housing need in the group. But this, as it stands, doesn't offer me enough mitigation for the loss of land. With an extra 2,000 homes coming to North Horsham, I take issue with Norfolk County Council's view that education land won't be necessary. I can also say that as far as sport goes, North Horsham Football Club has been incredibly successful. They've done a really good job for the community, but they're now really bulging at the seams. They're struggling to cope with the amount of clubs and teams of all ages and all sexes to play on their grounds at the moment. So the loss of this land, which is allocated for sport or education, to me is not acceptable in this town at the moment. I mentioned the paths, the effect on residential properties. There's almost universal disagreement that this from residents that this development should proceed. It is very unpopular. So I'll summarise now. I don't want to see any hedges lost with this development. I think they're unnecessary, and I think they should go back to the planning. If this goes ahead, they should go back to the drawing board and protect those levels of biodiversity that are already there. We heard last month at this meeting that there is no threat to our housing supply. So I struggle when considering alongside the emerging local plan for North Horsham, why we need this extra housing in this location. We have huge swathes of land being proposed for development, and here we are using up a piece of land that was bequeathed to North Horsham many, many years ago, and now we're going to build on it. It's contrary to the current development plan as it stands and as the officer accepted, and I don't even see a mention of the word climate change in this development, what sort of houses they will be, how will they be constructed. I believe nowadays this is a material consideration with this country is facing an existential crisis with climate change, and to failure to mention it in a development like this is appalling in my view. We need much more from these developers if it's to get my support, I'm afraid. There's insufficient mitigation to the loss of this green space, and I shall be voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor Lloyd. I now go to the chair. Paul, do you want to speak?
I think just to clarify one thing, my understanding is that this land was purchased in 1885 by the foundation, which obviously operated the Paston School as it was at the time. I've no knowledge it was ever bequeathed to the town. Whether James can elucidate on that one.
James, can you say anything?
I'm not sure I can say anything that's helpful. No. I don't know if maybe the agent would be able to.
Mr. Moyes, do you have any knowledge of when this land was bequeathed? No. Okay. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. No, I was quoting from some information the Paston Foundation gave to the North Horsham Town Council.
Okay.
Which might not have been circulated any wider. I'm an old boy of the Paston schools. I'm somewhat familiar with those playing fields from wet winter afternoons. Following on from what Councillor Lloyd has said, I possibly have less concerns about the open space. The land is not used for sport. It hasn't really been for a very long time. And the proposed landscaping to me mitigates against a lot of that loss. I mean, we can disagree on that, I'm sure. But so I'm split on that one. I can see a well-designed landscaping can bring more biodiversity perhaps to the area. Other concerns particularly relate to the footpaths and pedestrian access into the town. Clearly there needs to be a link onto Weaver's Way and then to the footpath that runs around the back of trackside. But that footpath, it might be fine on a nice day. People would not feel safe walking along that at night. They would therefore use the footpath along Station Road. Narrow. If it's past two people, you've got to step into the road from that pavement. You've then got to cross Norwich Road. Visibility towards the town through the railway bridge is not good. Traffic does tend to ignore the speed limit coming down Norwich Road towards the railway bridge. Which leads me to the second point on the road. The road is narrow. It's access only for a reason. If we put another significant number of cars down there, we have a problem. If we make them turn right and use the roundabout to come up Millfield Road, which is already a nightmare, takes one lorry coming down there and the whole thing locks up because of parking. And if we take the parking away, we're going to have an even bigger problem with speeding. So the highways issue to me is probably the biggest. And for that reason, I don't think we have sufficient information. I pick up what Nigel has said on drainage. I've missed that one. But yeah, experience of Anglian water in another area of the town is not good and impacts on properties I own. So I have serious interest in what Anglian water may or may not do. I'm therefore going to propose that we defer consideration of this application until we have further information on how the highways, footpath access issues and drainage are going to be dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heinrich. Anybody else wish to speak on this? Yes. Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I've been looking at this and I completely agree with what my fellow councillors have said. If this development goes ahead, I can imagine that road is going to be an absolute nightmare for construction traffic coming up and down it, and you know, I just don't think it's going to be a good entrance for the site. And also, my old chestnut again. In 15 years, we won't be having gas boilers. I'm assuming these are all going to be gas boilers in these properties, and not underfloor heating or heat source pumps. So. And as Councillor Lloyd has said, there's a lot of development coming down in the future from, I think, Broadland Housing are doing some in partnership with us. So I'm a bit torn on this one. Thank you.
Can I just point out that we're just looking at access here, so there's no, we have no idea what the proposed buildings are likely to be, and we have, that's why the climate situation hasn't been mentioned, presumably, Nigel, because we don't know.
I know, Madam Chair, but once this is approved, then negotiations get going, you know, closed doors, and I'm sure there's always trade-offs with developers, etc., etc. And I understand that the nature of this application, but this will lead on to further negotiations, which members won't be part of, and then we'll be asked to sign a fait accompli.
Thank you. Councillor Kershaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am aware of this site and quite often, although this road is restricted for access only, you do get heavy trucks going down this road to access the builder's merchant at the NCT Bakers, so, which causes problems already. So I think any additional traffic without road widening would be very dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Councillor Rest, then Councillor John Toy, and then Councillor Withington. Just remind me if I get that order wrong.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a small point. I think it's on page 20, but it is on the electronic system. And it's just a little bit of sort of encouragement in some ways that whoever prepared this, there is a statement here that says that on the basis of the development area of approximately 2 hectares, the provision of 54 dwellings would be approximately translated to 27 dwellings per hectare. That is generous, and I think on any site it is a generous amount of land and space around those properties. So I think there's a lot of negatives, but I think one has to also be honest and say there is quite a positive there that they're not cramming these into a very small area. So I just thought I'd make that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Toy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm not sure where I'm landing yet, but I don't know the area well, but I do know the area. Yeah, the road access, as Councillor Kershaw says, is used by people, even though it's supposed to be access only. We know that people travel down there, and we've seen the use of the roundabout that's been mentioned. So I believe there are some issues there that haven't been fully addressed. But actually, in use of the land, from what Councillor Lloyd was saying and about what's coming down the line for North Walsham and where this sits within the town, although this land is not open to the public at the moment, and it has the railway line next to it, you've got the Victory Centre there, the swimming pool, you've got the children's park, the other side of the railway line, and this open space, and it's in the town rather than it being moved out of the town as we build these extra bits. So these little pockets, I don't feel necessarily address what's actually there in the town now. Right by the town, amongst all the houses, there is this nice piece of open space which has got biodiversity and all the things already in it, as Councillor Lloyd has said. So there are things against it, but also the need for affordable housing, which we all understand, which is a difficult thing to balance. But I think we do need to think about that. So I just wanted to make those points. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just point out this would be a windfall settlement. So it's not included in the 1,800 to 2,000 houses which are planned in the next local plan. This is what you told me. Yeah, go on.
The wider picture, Chairman, is that our housing numbers are inclusive of windfalls. So we are specific on settlements and we make allocations, but we also budget for windfalls. And those would include sites such as this that may come forward in any event during the plan process. So the wider picture is, yeah, absolutely, this is not an allocated site for North Walsham, but it could be considered as part of the windfall development that would set the minimum level of housing provision for the district going forward. Thank you.
Oh dear. Yes. Right. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I'm interested at the moment by Councillor Heining's proposal because it's flagged up a few things for me that I had concerns with, and I know we are talking about the access, but there's nothing in here about the drainage, and from recent events working with the Norfolk Strategic Flood Alliance, a lot of it is coming out of access from new developments. So I think from that point of view, I would have been interested to have seen something about how that was going to be mitigated. It's already identified as an area with some groundwater issues. So I think it would have been nice to have seen something on that. And I agree with the highways points. That road is considerably difficult at times with the Victory along there and accessing it along there. There is a significant number of people using it. So my leaning at the moment is towards we need slightly more information and perhaps some more consideration about the highways issues.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Cushing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just 1 or 2 points. I'd like to console Councillor Lloyd, who said all the developments being done in his ward. I think 950 actually also being done in mine as well. So I think we share that. Indeed, I check that, understand that. I would just make 1 point. I mean, this is not making a political point, but there are 2 councillors for your ward, and obviously you've spoken well and articulately on your views. And I do think we haven't had a report from Councillor Birch, so we don't actually have no idea what the other councillor of the ward thinks, unless you know otherwise.
Okay, yes. Would you mind, Chris, if Nigel?
Yeah. I have discussed this with Councillor Birch. Councillor Birch works at the magistrate's office several days a week. And is unable to be here today. And he's
That's what I would suggest, but anyway. But
I think if you're going to be political, which we're not.
No, not being
it-
political
it
at all.
goes
I'm
to
talking about being a
everybody.
district council regardless of what flavour
Okay,
we are.
fine.
So. I do think it's finely balanced. Councillor Lloyd did make some very pertinent points around that, but the fact is it is in the centre of a town, so you look at all the amenities that you would want for people to have. You're going to obviously not have them to travel very far for those. But I do think the point of drainage is well made as well. I was walking around my ward yesterday in the midst of a cloudburst and looking at the vast puddles everywhere, where obviously the drainage is not very good. And I do think that we're concreting over all these places without adequate drainage. And I do think that's something that does need to be weighed into the balance. So in terms of what Councillor Heinrich has said, that may be, I think, a valid point in terms of getting more information on that. So yeah, thank you.
As you all know, I do not agree with people, with local members who, if they can't attend, they should present a written statement, even if they don't call it in, which this was not called in by the local members. Yes, Councillor Heinrich.
Thank you, Chair. Just a further point of information on the area. As this flooding has been mentioned, the road under the railway bridge regularly floods.
Yes.
That prevents pedestrian access into the town via that route. And we've been lucky the last couple of days. It's just been a big puddle rather than deep water, but this car's been trapped under there before.
Yes.
They've tried to transfer it without realising that the dip is rather more of a dip than they think. So, you know, there's also the other highways issue. We've got all the traffic coming out of the Hopkins development and the industrial units alongside. We're going to get further development up Norwich Road, which will add to more traffic. We really do have to come back and look at these traffic issues in some detail as regards the wider area, not just that particular junction.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this? Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I share some of Councillor Lloyd's concerns about this application. The location of the open land to the centre of the town is very useful in terms of its potential. I am really concerned about the highways implications and substandard junctions. And at the very least, I think members should consider proposing a deferral until we get more information, perhaps both from highways and from Anglian Water, who yes, do have a dubious record on such matters. As I know from my experience in my ward, that at the moment we are suffering sewage outages. We've had the second in 2 months, and I'm really struggling to get Anglian Water to engage, but that's by the by. Personally, I would propose that this is refused. I'm not satisfied that the loss of open space has been mitigated by the proposals for the Section 106 agreement. Policy CT1 says that development proposals which result in the whole or partial loss of open space will not be permitted unless three things. The space does not contribute to the character of the settlement, that's arguable. Is surplus to requirement taking account of all the functions it can perform? I would suggest that that the case is not made out that the proposal adequately compensates for the loss of open space, or where provision of equal or greater benefit is provided in the locality. Again, I don't think that that is fulfilled, and for these reasons, it's contrary to policy CT1. That would be the reason for my proposal to refuse it. I think that that is how I intend to vote, and I will second Councillor Lloyd's proposal to refuse.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anybody else wish to speak on this? Yes, Councillor Heinrich.
Yeah, and I did propose that we defer consideration pending further information. So.
Yeah, I'm just going to have a little chat with you're seconding that one, the deferral. So we have to go with the first, which is with the proposal on page, which I've forgotten, which is to approve delegated authority Okay. So we're going to go for a deferral vote first before we go for. Do I? Hello, Jeff. Didn't see you joining us. You wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Just before we went to the vote, I just wanted to pick up a few points.
Move your microphone a little bit closer to your mouth.
Okay, is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, good morning, members. Just wanted to raise a few points before we went to the vote, just on what's been discussed this morning. Obviously, been listening intently to what's been said. Just firstly on the points Nigel Lloyd raised about responding to a climate emergency. Yes, that is a hugely important issue, and it's something that we recognise as planning officers. Obviously, when we're considering proposals, location of proposals is one of those significant issues that affect the sustainability of development. And as some members have already pointed out, this is in what would be considered a very sustainable location. Obviously, the issue that members have is about the loss of open space. I know that's something we would need to consider very carefully, but as James has set out in the report, the delivery of formal open space or recreation space as part of this application would unlock what is private land at the moment for public use. So that's something that we've weighed in the balance. Now, in terms of the request for deferral to consider highways issues, footpaths and drainage matters, I suppose it'd be important for us as officers to understand what concerns you have, or what would address the concerns you have if we went back to the Highway Authority. Now, you have a response from the Highway Authority saying they have no objection to the scheme. So the question is, are we going back to the Highway Authority to question their position, or are we seeking independent highway advice to corroborate the highway position? We need to be clear on what basis we're going back to the Highway Authority, otherwise it becomes hard for us as officers to resolve the reason for deferral. In terms of the Anglian Water point and footpath points, many of those issues will be resolved at the reserve matters stage. So they're not always detailed matters of surface water drainage and foul drainage. They would be resolved at the reserve matters stage. So yeah, I just want to make sure if we do go for a deferral on certain issues that we're clear what we're expecting officers to do. So when we can bring the item back to you, we can make sure we resolve your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. We're still going to go for the deferral first. Paul, what was your?
I was just going to add that given our past experience of highways, an independent study of the impact would be appropriate in this case. Similarly, with the drainage aspects, if we leave it, as Councillor Lloyd said, we have no control over it. I'd like to see something which will ensure that we're not going to get yet more water coming off that site onto Norwich Road and causing traffic chaos, basically. It needs to be a proper SUDS, and we need to know about it.
So we have a proposal for a deferral from Councillor Heinrich, and we have a seconder from Councillor Kershaw. This is for a reconsideration of the highways matters. The number of egresses onto the Norwich Road, if you consider, I mean, I've used that quite a lot, and it is a difficult road as it stands at the moment. And we also have for the drainage, which, as we know with Anglian Water, as I know within my own ward, can be less than helpful with what they say, but I think they have to accept when a new development is put in, they have to agree to take the wastewater, etc., and provide fresh water. So don't quite know how they do that if we keep getting these sewage backups, as I've got in my area, but there we are. So can we please go to a vote? This is for the deferral.
Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, there was a key issue when the councillor spoke about the permeability of this site, the accessibility of footpaths, which I thought I heard as part of the initial proposal for the reason for deferral to seek more information on that issue, because that's clearly get my teeth in this morning, clearly critical to taking traffic off the road, making an attractive, permeable
Okay.
location whereby people can walk or cycle to the town centre. My apologies for interrupting, but I thought it was important to capture that.
I think the footpath situation was that you were saying that the existing footpath on Station Road is narrow and therefore is not suitable.
Yes, Chairman, not only is it narrow, pedestrians then have to cross Norwich Road to attain the footpath the other side, and then they are squeezed into that sort of space under the railway bridge, which is never been a good idea.
Are we all right to go for a vote now? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Are you gonna, do you want to speak again?
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, before the vote, may I speak again?
Yes, I will. I don't normally let people keep coming in, but I think this is a difficult one, and I think we need to fully explore it.
If we're going to go for a deferral, I would like the hedgerow situation re-examined. I would like some sort of pledge about the effects on the climate of this development. Those basically all the things that I mentioned on here.
I'm not sure that we can do that at the moment, Nigel, because this is just access.
Well, what I'm concerned about is, yeah, you give the access, and the next thing it comes before us for approval. And so it's important we get this right. If it's only access, that's fine. Cool.
I think that the removal of the hedgerows was to try and widen the. Yes, it's an outline. Thank you, Angie. It's to try and widen the footpath. Yes.
Just to help members, if I were an agent representing my landowner here, I would have heard this debate. I would have heard those points relating to climate change and relating to the matters of the auditing of the hedgerow loss. So if I was minded to engage with the local district council, then I would be ensuring that those matters were also considered when I brought this matter back for you all to consider as members. Otherwise, I would simply be facing the same debate again, wouldn't I? There we are.
Thank you. I think there was an oblique plea for you, Miss. Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick point. Is my understanding correct that the width of Station Road varies from between 5 and 4.9 metres?
5.2 and 4.9,
Yeah.
something like that.
And the access into the actual development as shown in the papers is 6 metres in
6
width.
metres, yeah.
So we have an estate road which is actually wider than the main feeder road, taking a much greater volume of traffic. I'd be interested to see how highways can resolve that difficulty, even if we consult with them further. So for that reason, I will not be supporting deferral.
Okay. Don't forget that each of these houses is, if they are built, they normally would have 2 cars per house. So that's 108 cars which are liable to, at various times during the day, enter and exit the site. So when I go, oh dear, here we go. I'm going to stop it after you, John.
Yeah, sorry, Madam Chair. I just wanted to, if we're going for an independent highways check, could we also look at traffic flows, as Councillor Kershaw and I have observed, to see that if it's being used as signposted or not? Because I think there may be a different story there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So if we could now go to the vote, which is for deferment on conditions of highways, drainage, and various climate change and hedgerow ideas, which I must say that I don't like hedgerows being taken out. There we are. Sometimes it's necessary. So if we could have all those in favour of deferment, would you please raise your hands? We need to do a poll here. Do you want a roll call? Would that help you? Okay. Go on, Linda. Yes, please.
Thank you. I'll read your names alphabetically. If you could say if you're for, against, or abstain. This is for deferral. Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Cushing. Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett,
4,
Councillor Grove-Jones,
4,
Councillor Heinrich,
4,
Councillor Holiday,
4,
Councillor Kershaw,
4,
Councillor Lloyd,
Against.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle,
4,
Councillor Rest,
Against.
Councillor Toy,
4.
Councillor Withington.
4.
Thank you.
against, have we got anybody against? 4 against.
So that's 9 in favour and 4 against.
No abstentions?
No abstentions.
So deferral has been passed, okay? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moyes. Those of you who voted against, would you have voted for a refusal if you need? Oh, I shouldn't ask that question. I beg your pardon. I said my brain wasn't in gear today. Slappo. No, not gentle persuasion. I do need a slap today. It's after the night I've had, and it wasn't a particularly good night, I have to tell you. Not like one says when one is young. Now we go to agenda item 8, which is the Development Management Performance Update. Introduced with great aplomb by Philip.
I'm always worried, Chairman, though I won't live up to the billing in life. There we are. That's Mrs. Royson's opinion, let me tell you. Now then, members, we report on a monthly basis, so you'll be used to hearing what the standards are in terms of the targets that we should achieve. We're looking to achieve 60% performance of major decisions within the 2-year period. We don't believe that that's appropriate, members. We want to strive for 90%. I remember Councillor Cushing and I having that discussion at the last meeting, I believe. What you will see on your report is that we're reporting for quarter 8 this time round. That's for July to September. And you'll see that, albeit that we only made one major decision in that time period, that was a decision which was agreed within the extended time period and was issued subject to a section 106. So we have 100% record for quarter 8, and we currently stand at 80% of our major decisions in time or under agreed extensions. Moving on, you will see the area that we have focused much discussion on in this meeting is the non-major performance as measured by table 153 of our friends at the MCHLG. And you'll see on that table, quarter 8 reads as 83% of all decisions on non-majors being in time. We issued 284 decisions, 79 of those were in the 8-week period. 169 decisions were subject to extensions of time, and we hit 158 of those agreed extension periods. The overall period for position for non-majors is that we stand at 79% of all non-majors in time or under agreement, as against a 70% government requirement. Again, members, we strive towards being in the region of 90 to 95%, but you can see that we are making positive progress. And in this report, I also detail the monthly performance for you on non-majors. In July, we ran at 73.5% under the timelines, and in August that rose to 86%, and in September that stood at 92%. And as you look there, members, you will also see that we have achieved a significantly stronger performance in obtaining decisions within the agreed extension of time period. So I will tell you in this report that my view is that the service is moving in a positive direction and that we are sustaining good performance month by month, and that is ensuring that the District Council's position on both majors and non-majors for the sake of speed is not failing. We also are considered on matters of quality of decision making. That's in terms of our appeal decisions. We'll talk about appeals under the next item on the agenda. You will see on majors, we stand at a 2-year average of 2.44% of cases being overturned against the District Council's recommendation. The report notes that that equates to a single majors appeal during that time period. And for non-majors, we stand at 8.54%. And again, members, that stands significantly better than the standard of 10%, which is the government guidance. So we have a strong qualitative performance in terms of our development management and majors decision making. I talk a little about the influencing factors in this report, and within the capacity section I've included an element there that talks about the number of current live caseloads on hand. We currently have 575 live cases, as at last month 658. So you can see the pattern is that numbers are going out of the door. You will also see, members, that I'm reporting to you on the number of cases that we hold, which are greater than 26 weeks old. We have 60 non-major cases over 26 weeks and 34 major applications. You'll recall, members, we spoke about majors, extensions of time, Section 106 agreements, and occasionally deferrals for good reasons. So, members, other items that are mentioned there, I have no new software updates to bring forward to report to you. We have experienced no substantive illness within the development management and majors team. And you can see that the ongoing issue of consultations is an issue that ourselves as managers are working with other service and external consultees over, and still remains an area where we need to secure higher levels of service from those consultees. That is a significant matter for our case officers. Some bullet points there on key performance areas that we will be looking to improve on. Significantly, we do now have stronger management reports available for our service managers and team leaders. And also, members, please note that in terms of the improved business processes, we have developed a service plan which was discussed with our portfolio holder and director recently, and that service plan will be commended with our zero-based budget for this service for the forthcoming year. So, members, that's my report today, and it's a report for information. I'll be pleased to take your questions or queries or comments. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Philip. Councillor Kershaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's purely a question on vacancies and how are we doing in terms of recruitment at the moment.
Thank you, Chairman. We have recently been successful with internal promotions, filling posts, and we have most recently filled the vacancy created by Natalie Levitt, leaving the council to move to South Holland for career progression. That post has been filled by Joe Barrow. We will have an opportunity for a recruitment campaign that will look towards the planning officer post that Joe leaves behind. This month, we've had one new planning officer join the team, recruited in a planning officer role, and we've had another officer recruited as a trainee who will then move through the opportunities available to become a planning officer on a grade which takes them from trainee to planning officer through the planning qualifications. We will have a little bit of news, I think, Chairman, at the end of this meeting. So I have one other area. You may have seen a recruitment campaign that has been undertaken that has not been successful. I'll be able to speak a little bit more on that as we go forward, but unfortunately I need that individual to make that announcement, I think, first, Chairman. But on the whole, I would say, Chairman, that the pattern for recruitment has been quite strong, but clearly there remains an issue about recruiting senior, more experienced officers, and that's a matter that we are reviewing with our HR business partners. Thank you, Chairman.
Richard,
That's fine. Thank you very much for that.
anybody else wish to say something? Yes, Andrew and then John.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I just want to ask Mr. Olsen if the numbers of applications that are granted extensions of time are likely to reduce significantly as we emerge from the pandemic. I'm assuming that the extension of time on validations is mainly due to the effects of the pandemic, and as we move more to an extension of time on a case-by-case bespoke basis, can I ask what the benchmark is for extensions of time percentage-wise as we transition back to more normality, if I can put it that way?
Okay, through you, Chairman. The position with extensions of time is that those were twofold when we last reported to you. We talked about issues relating to software upgrades. I'm reporting to you today that we don't anticipate any more new software upgrades in the immediate future. So we will have a balanced system, and that system is now becoming more stable. In terms of COVID, certainly there was an impact, and Councillor Brown will be aware of that, as that some of those issues occurred whilst you were portfolio holder for planning. We requested extensions of time on an automatic basis for all new cases registered through July and August. We have now stopped doing that. Our case officers are obviously balancing that caseload, which was high because we were experiencing significant new numbers of applications coming in, which had trended higher than they had been over the last couple of years. We believe that those extensions of time will enable us to balance the officers' caseload. That seems to be occurring. You can see that we have less applications live on hand now, and the performance figures are improving. So less applications on hand, more applications going out the door should equate to a situation where we are driving down our requirements for extensions of time. What we will do is we will include requirements for extensions of time performance with our individual case officers via the team leaders. I think it's too early for me to give you a percentage commitment for us as a service today, and that will certainly be something that I will report to you on as members once we have gone through that appraisal process with the individual officers and we've looked broadly at where the service stands. I guarantee you, members, that our aim is to drive down the requirements for extensions of time and to make as many decisions as possible within our 8 or 13-week period, and to make those decisions as soon as possible within those time periods. But as I say, members, we have other external influencing factors, such as consultation delays, that actually are hindering that drive. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that okay, Andrew?
Yes, that's thank you for that response. I'd just like to, whilst we're looking at this particular agenda item, ask about the training program on the new software. We've heard that there are no more updates and therefore downtime on the system likely in the future. Can I just ask for a report on where we are with training our staff on the new uniform system and whether we're satisfied at this particular stage of its development that the training is on track, is sufficient across the staffing in the department?
Thank you, Chairman. I think that the best benchmark of that really is the fact that as a project group, we are now satisfied that the uniform system is stable and that we can actually move towards decommissioning the previous system, Accolade. That will happen
over the next few months and into the new year. So the accolade system will no longer be accessible for our officers. One of the key issues that we've been offering training on has been the use of GIS mapping on this system. So that has been moved forward. We are offering new training on uniform for new entry officers who are joining the team. One of the issues that we had with uniform was an issue relating to training at launch, and also the fact that we have been in a situation where the service has been largely working from home. So the ability to actually learn on the job, to talk with your colleagues about how uniform is working and actually walk over to the office and ask those questions of officers has been somewhat more limited. We are operating on the basis of the appraisals process, identifying areas where training is required, and that will be true for uniform also.
Is that okay? Jeff, I can't see you, but I can see a little yellow hand.
Is it okay if I just come in at this point, just to sort of embellish on the points that have been raised about, that might help Councillor Brown understand where we're at the moment. In terms of the uniform system, I mean, part of my role has now changed. So I'm now development management and major projects manager. So we've got sort of a single manager overseeing the two services. And part of my team plan is looking at reviewing processes and procedures across the whole development management and major projects teams. So we're looking at everything from pre-application, application and post-decision processes. So part of that is looking at what's working in uniform and what perhaps things we could do to improve processes in uniform that help officers deliver those timely decisions, because that's the hard bit. You need to make sure the software is working for you as an authority, and that's the bit that we're going to be reviewing over the next 6 months or so, to make sure that those processes and procedures are spot on, so that we can deliver the best planning service we can possibly do. Because that's what we come to work for. We don't come to work to deliver poor performance. We come to work to deliver the best planning outcomes in the public interest. That's why I went to university to do a planning course, because I wanted it to positively influence development on the ground. And having back office systems in place to help you deliver those positive planning outcomes is fundamental, and that's what we're looking at over the next few months. So if you wanted to speak to me directly, I'm happy to take any comments sort of after this committee, if people had particular areas where they wanted me to explore further as part of that process review. But as I say, we've made a strong commitment to look at everything again. There's a process and procedure, and yes, so we'll look at everything in quite a lot of detail.
Thank you, Jeff. Did we all hear that? Okay, right. Councillor Toy. Sorry, John.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, few points there. One is the manpower and recruitment situation. I've recently, just since coming back from holidays, so it's only been about 10 days, I've been looking around the country, and it's universal. The increase in workload, the increase in enforcement, it appears to be universal. I'm sure there'll be some that haven't, but generally speaking, when you look around, there is an issue with the number of people to be found. So the fact that we're growing our own is a good way to approach that. And not only does that affect the planning, one of the issues, as highlighted in the report there, the consultations, it means there's not people in the consultation areas as well. So these are the things that are in the way. And so on the back of that, I think it should be acknowledged of what has been achieved by the change in these numbers, the hard work that's been put in, the workload that officers are still carrying to turn this around. And I think that should be acknowledged, and it is significant with the background of where we've been, the journey we've been on, all the things that have been mentioned, software, COVID, training, working remotely. It's a significant achievement to do this, and thank you to the officers for that. We've still got a journey to go. They know that, we all know that, but by working together, and if we have concerns, sharing it with them so they can be addressed, we will move there. And I will hopefully, by the time we get to full council, try and get a fuller picture of the situation around the country for the manpower thing, because I think it's important that it's not just here. In terms of the uniform, I know that the officers are also parts of user groups, and we refer to, you know, connections through other authorities, so that we're not doing it in isolation. We're using as much information as knowledge that can be done to pull this together. So thank you to the officers. It's good work. And yeah, let's all move on. Thank you.
Yes, I echo that. I think we tend to, the British always tend to sort of take a negative view with a lot of things, and but with this one, they do work extremely hard, and it has been an extremely difficult time. Philip knows I support his staff fully, and I'm sure most of us don't have all to support it, but most of us would say the same. It's Gerard next, and then Victoria. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I was actually thrilled when Philip said he'd recruited extra staff and what have you, because that's a national problem. I know from different councils they just can't find people. I remember last time I asked you about the customer service side of the experience, and I gave a few suggestions of maybe emailing applicants, you know, let them sort of know every now and again whether how far their application was going. And I'd just like to know if you put any more thought into that, the sort of customer experience side of it. So it can be quite difficult sometimes.
So the short answer, Chairman, is yes, and I can see Jeff on the screen as well. And Jeff and I have been looking at the team plans that we corporately need to provide. Part of that team plan, Chairman, is part of the process. We've shared some of the team plan key issues with portfolio holder and the director in terms of our need to review that process. And the team plan is very much focused on driving forward better customer service. I think my short answer to you as members last time round, Chairman, was we will focus as officers on our first clear date, trying to make contact with applicants and agents as soon as possible after that first clear date has gone, telling people where we stand with the consultations that have come back. That should be self-evident from public access, but also telling those customers when they can expect a decision, information we might need to help that decision. It's not easy at the moment because the officers still have high caseloads. They really do. The officers are striving to do that, and I think John was reporting, sorry, portfolio holder, was reporting to me recently in our meeting that after coming back from 3 weeks away, his inbox was nowhere near as full as he'd expected. That's my experience as well. Not universally, we still get them. There are still concerns coming to us. But the pattern that I'm seeing, Chairman, is where our customers, I think, are beginning to see an improved communication as a result of our performance turning up. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all right, John?
Absolutely. What Philip said, and I don't want first names, I'm not precious. But no, what Philip said, you know, when I came back, I had several hundred emails, but actually a lot of the you know, the stuff before that I'd have been following up is already being dealt with and handled. So there has been a significant change there. And that for me, obviously coming back from holiday was a delight. So, and you know, I've thanked them for that, obviously already. So yeah, we are moving in the right direction. And as I said before, and it is acknowledged that there is some way to go, but we've got all the right things in place. We're working on the website and its layout. And, you know, there's all sorts of, you know, we could spend all day about the things we're doing, but that's, if you like, my job with Philip and his team to work through that, about all the detail bits. But all those things are being put in place to make these changes.
Is that okay, Jeff? You agree with that? Yeah. Okay. Victoria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very nice to see the improvement, Philip, and I know how hard the planning officers are working on a daily basis. Two things. One, it'd be really interesting to see that broken down by ward, because my guess is that some wards have far different caseloads to others, and my personal experience is that everything takes quite a long time, but then everything's quite precious. And the other is, wouldn't it be interesting to see some benchmarking? I think we talked about that on the performance report as a whole, and I know that LG Inform has benchmarking for majors and non-majors. And it'd be really interesting if that could possibly be included in the report. Thank you.
I think the short answer is noted, Chairman. I will do what I can. I'll see if we can achieve ward by ward reporting. Possibly we might look at agreeing the intervals that we do that. That's quite a big piece of work. And benchmarking, absolutely. That could be something that we maybe look at benchmarking on a quarterly or 6-monthly basis. So we might create sort of a bumper version of the report, Chairman, which explores those areas. I try to keep the report quite slim, quite focused, and dealing with performance, but those issues do relate to performance. It's just that to produce the information might take a little bit of time.
Okay. Is that okay, Victoria? Okay. John, you again, and then Liz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for Victoria, you may or may not be aware, at the bottom of uniform, you can actually search by villages and all sorts of, there's quite an in-depth selection of search criteria. So if that helps you in the interim to find any information you're interested in, and if you're driving that, I'm sure either I or one of the officers could help you to do that. But there's quite a, if we go into the more complex search, there's a lot of information, which is where I've dragged stuff before council before. So yes, you do have to count through it and work it out for yourself. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
Sorry, Chairman, through you, remiss of me to say the references to my rather oblique tableness actually refer to the national tables. So you can pop over on the government's website and take a look at those tables, and you can see exactly where we stand on those live tables. What I'll do is I'll see if we can agree to circulate some links to those tables for you, so you can see how we're doing on those live tables. MCHLG call them live tables, but they are effectively quarterly. So they're about as live as the reports that you're seeing here, but you will see how we're doing against others. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And then Andrew.
Thank you. And you know, there's a lot of information coming through in these reports, so thank you for that. I know it takes time to do these things, but I think it's always useful to reflect on seeing that improvement to performance on the ground. And you know, I'm very pleased to report in one of our larger developments that we have, that I know the town council really appreciated the support that's been given by officers, and you know, the extra things. So I think all those things, they take time in the process, but you are looking to that engagement, and that's certainly been very appreciated. So my thanks to officers for that, please.
That's lovely to hear, because I do think we do need to just give them our full support as and when we can. Andrew, you want to speak now?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a minor point, would it be possible to have a link to the MHCLG information that Philip kindly referred to in the report, so that members are in no doubt as to which information they should be referring to?
Absolutely, Chairman. Careful, it is an absolute rabbit hole. Once you start to look at one of those tables, you'll start to look at many others. I'm happy to answer any questions you've got offline and to have those discussions. And if you feel you need more information about MCHLG access, performance tables, etc., please drop me a line. I'll be happy to help.
No wants to have a word.
Thank you, Chair. That's exactly the point I was going to make. It's no longer the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. It is, in fact, the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. Local government has gone from it. Apparently shortened to DLUC these days. Thank you, Chair.
DLUC, oh gosh, I don't know these new words. Heavens to Betsy. Anybody else wish to talk? Query, question, praise with regard to the planning department and its efforts? No, thank you very much, Philip. We now go on to agenda item 9, the appeals section.
Thank you,
another thrilling and favourite section.
I'll make sure those positive messages and comments get back to the team, and I'll look forward to reporting to you again next month on that. Appeals section, we normally take these as read, don't we? So I'm going to look at section A, the new appeals. Slightly fewer new appeals coming through. I'm not sure if any members have any points you want to raise, or if you want to raise those possibly out of the meeting with me. On reflection, I'll be happy to take those comments.
Any questions here for Philip? No. Okay. So, well, sharing them, yes, but Shire. Yes, well.
That's just to check that members are reading these agendas, of course. Noted. Very embarrassed by that as I live there, but there we go. Inquiries and hearings in progress. We have the same to report back as last time round. I'll be happy to take any queries or questions about those 3 cases. Thank you.
Anybody have anything to say? John and then Victoria.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of points you may wish to know. The gentleman in Fakenham, planning numbers 92 and 93, contacted me the other day. The planning inspector was on site on Monday. So they had a meeting in Fakenham, which is appeal. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Victoria?
Philip, through you, Chair, sorry, could Philip update us on Arcady, please?
I certainly can, Chairman. We talk about Arcady on a monthly basis, and I have been updating Victoria directly. We need to report, Chairman, that we are currently delayed in moving the current planning applications for Arcady forward. We were awaiting revised plans for the current live planning application for Arcady. But then we're presented with further information relating to 3 further planning applications. The District Council are in conversation with the agents representing the applicant and are due to meet with them in, I think, around about 7 days' time. We have expressed concerns that we operated a mediation process for a single application, and will update the committee next month when we have arrived at an outcome on those matters of those 3 additional applications. Clearly, it's a matter that is currently in progress, and I will ensure that we keep Councillor Holliday, as local member, updated on those outcomes. Whilst we await the decision on the planning applications, clearly the appeal that you see before you is held. That is subject to agreement with the planning inspectorate. So we will be contacting the planning inspectorate, ideally in a conjoined way with the appellant, and keeping them up to date with the changes that have been made by the appellant with the 3 further planning applications. I'll keep you updated, Chairman.
Thank you. Is that okay, Victoria?
Yes, thank you, Philip. There's lots of, through you, Chair, sorry. Mr. Housen, there's plenty of detail that we can discuss offline, I think. Thank you.
Written representations in hand, so I'll take those again as they appear on the agenda, and I will ask members if you wish to raise any points on those written representations in hand. Thank you, Chairman.
Anything? Yes, Andrew.
Just to prove that I am paying attention, I think at the bottom of page 34, Corpus in Saxthorpe, PU/20/0398. I think that it's been decided, has it not? Or has that come back again?
Chairman, I think Councillor Brown is correct. What we'll do is we report on an updating basis, so that will be caught in our next update. If you would like a specific update on that appeal, I can arrange for the case officer to give that update through you, Chairman, directly in an email or phone call.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions on that section? No, well then we go on to the next section.
Chairman, good to see that we have appeal decisions coming forward in greater number from the planning inspectorate. You can see there, members, that we have been successful in the vast majority of cases, and that we have one case relating to advertising hoardings in at Norwich Road in Cromer, which has been allowed. That is the only case. Again, members, if you have any queries or questions relating to those, then I'll be happy to assist.
Any questions for this section? Yes, John?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to, in brief, Philip, the reasons that the inspector allowed the sign, what the differences of opinion? Thank you.
The consideration of advertisement applications relates primarily to matters of local visual amenity and highway safety. And on this matter, officers were particularly concerned on the issues of visual amenity. It was a value judgment that the inspector made, and the inspector came down on the appellant's side. Our issue here was the matter that this one was going to be illuminated, and it was going to be more prominent than it currently is as a non-illuminated sign.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions for Philip under the appeals sections? No? Fine. We now go to item 10 on the agenda. Any other urgent business? I've had none. Have you had anything? No, not at all. Exclusion of press and public. To pass the following resolution if necessary. Don't think we need to pass that. We have no public or press present. Item 12, private business exempt. No, there's no exempt business as far as I know. And no need to consider any exempt matters. So thank you very much, everybody.